El Chapo's son's plea deal signals demise of the Sinaloa Cartel. Ex-Chicago Brocane Kingpin says. Margarito Jay Flores Jr. helped bring down Cartel boss Joaquin El Pocha Guzman Loera. He says the cooperation of at least one of Pocha's sons with U.S. authorities shows the Mexican drug cartels aren't as solid as they appear. When Margarito J. Flores Jr. agreed in 2008 to help the U.S. topple El Pocha, he knew he could end up paying a deadly price for flipping on the Mexican Sinaloa rug cartel boss. A federal judge even warned him at his 2015 sentencing, "Every time you start a car, you're going to be wondering, is that car going to start or is that car going to explode?" He watched Batman, The Dark Knight, when the judge got in the car and the car blew up and all that shit.
No, mommy's wake.
Now that one of Pocha's sons, Ovidio, has agreed to do exactly what Flores did almost 2 decades ago and admit his guilt and cooperate with U.S. law enforcement officials, Flores says, "I do believe that we've seen the demise of the Sinaloa Cartel as we once knew it." Flores, 43, who's now out of prison and teaching cops the ins and outs of drug trafficking, says Guzman's agreement to cooperate with U.S. authorities shows the double standard in the way the cartel's leaders view flipping. Ironically, it's their own family that wrote the rules on flipping when it benefits them, Flores says in an interview with the Chicago Sun-Times. These guys preach loyalty, but they only mean it when they're on top. The moment it stops serving them, they move differently. He and his twin brother Pedro Flores grew up in a little village and became what prosecutors say were the biggest drug traffickers in Chicago history. They smuggled an average of more than a ton of cocaine a month from Mexico to the United States from 2005 to 2008, and El Chapo was their number one supplier. The success, fleeting. The time at the top, fleeting. The after effects, continuous and foregoing into the future. That's just what it is. It's life. 2008, after being caught by the feds, they was caught. Somebody threw a net over their head and shit and caught them. In 2008, after being caught by the feds, the brothers agreed to help the U.S. The brothers agreed before they got caught. They never got caught. The brothers agreed when they reached out and said, "Hey, man, we could get you this." And y'all said, "All right, you're on your own. Get it." Brothers agreed to help the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration penetrate Pocha's drug empire. A secretly recorded phone negotiation between Pedro Flores and Pocha about a 20-key Sharon deal was key evidence that helped convict the Sinaloa Cartel boss in 2018 in New York and sent him to prison for life. Then in 2023, Ovidio and the 3 other sons of Pocha were charged in Chicago with drug trafficking. Prosecutors say their operation was one of the biggest suppliers to the United States of Fentanyl, a drug blamed in the unalivings of thousands of people in Chicago in recent years. On July 11th, Ovidio pleaded guilty, agreeing to cooperate with federal prosecutors in Chicago, California, and New York. Under the deal, he's also required to cooperate with the Justice Department's Narcotics and Dangerous Drug Section and to pay the government $80 million. His brother Joaquin Guzman is awaiting trial in Chicago. Pocha's son Ivan Archibaldo and Alfredillo also face federal drug trafficking charges in Chicago, but haven't been arrested. The U.S. government is offering $10 million in rewards for their capture. We all know that's bullshit. Ain't nobody get that mile money that we know of. Hit the like button if you have yet to do so, y'all. Salutes. Margarito Flores says he never met Ovidio. "My dealings were more with his brothers, Alfredo and Ivan. But Ovidio's cooperation doesn't surprise me," he says. "And I wouldn't be surprised when Joaquin pleads guilty." He also says he thinks that Ivan and Alfredo will eventually reach out to make a deal or cooperate when they get arrested. Flores calls Ovidio Guzman's plea agreement a strategic play for survival and leverage. Ovidio's lawyer didn't respond to a request for comment. Flores points out that Vicente Zambada Niebla, a son of Sinaloa Cartel co-founder El Yoma, also pleaded guilty to rug charges in Chicago in 2013. Vicente Zambada gave explosive testimony against El Pocha. Last year, El Yoma was arrested and extradited to New York, where he too faces rug charges. El Pocha's son Joaquin is believed to have tricked El Yoma into getting on a plane, telling him they were going to look at real estate. Like, these people, I don't have no faith in news companies, man. These media outlets are bullshit. We know that wasn't no trick. No, there was no real estate in the trick to get that man out that country. The trick was, I need you to come quell this beef between these politicians. The trick was not, no, let's go look at some real estate. Let's go look at some airstrips. Get the fuck out of here.
No mommy's wake.
The Chicago Sun-Times is crazy. Is believed to have tricked El Yoma into getting on a plane, telling them they're going to look at real estate in Mexico when they really were headed to Texas, where they were arrested at an airport in El Paso. Joaquin might have used the ruse as ammunition for a hoped-for deal with U.S. authorities for himself and to help his already jailed brother Ovidio, sources say. Factions loyal to Yoma and Pocha's four sons, known as the Chapizas, have been warring in Mexico since Yoma's capture. Flores says he's thankful for the deal he and his brother made with the feds in Chicago. When my brother and I turned ourselves in on November 30th, 2008, there weren't many people at our level cooperating, and definitely not voluntarily. He says in some ways, I believe we helped set a precedent that it's possible to walk away from that life and start over. Today, you've got people who once mocked the idea now living freely in the U.S. under new identities. That's a powerful incentive. We walked away. We became fathers. And we built something positive out of the wreckage. If Ovidio and his brothers are not cooperating, and especially if they turned on Yoma, that's a major win for the U.S. government and a huge one for the DEA's Chicago office. It also exposes the reality these organizations aren't as solid as they appear. Deals between U.S. authorities and Sinaloa Cartel leaders such as Ovidio have rankled Mexico President Claudia Sheinbaum, who has pointed out that the Trump administration designated many cartels as terrorist organizations. They've repeatedly stated that they do not negotiate with these groups, Sheinbaum has said. So they need to explain why, in these cases, agreements are being made. Okay, they got the little bolsitas right there. Trompito crackdown on Fetty suppliers. El Pocha's cartel, based in Mexico's western coastal state of Sinaloa, is still the biggest supplier of Fetty to the United States, according to the U.S. authorities. President Donald Trompito has threatened higher tariffs to force Mexico, we don't hear about tariffs no more, China and Canada to stop the cartel and other criminal groups from transporting the deadly rug over the U.S. border. Across the United States, DEA agents have reported seizing about 44 million Fetty pills and 4,500 pounds of Fetty powder this year, and made more than 2,100 arrests related to the rug. We are not slowing down, Robert Murphy, the federal agency's acting administrator, said Tuesday at a news conference in Washington. We are dismantling these networks piece by piece. The DEA's Chicago office has seized more than 1.6 million pills containing Fetty so far this year, sharply up from the approximately 600,000 pills it reported seizing all of last year, and the 65,000 is seized in 2022. The regional office, which covers Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin, also has reported seizing more than 395 pounds of Fetty powder so far this year, compared to 229 pounds last year. The rug, a deadly scourge on Chicago streets since about 2005, is mixed into counterfeit pills that sellers purport to be Oxycontin or other prescription rugs, and also is blended with Sharon and other rugs to be snorted or injected. As the number of Fetty Wap seizures has risen, the number of opioid unalivings in Cook County has fallen. In 2024, the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office reported that opioids were responsible for more than 1,000 unalivings countywide, mostly from combinations of Fetty Wap and drugs such as heroin. There were about 1,800 such unalivings in 2023, more than 2,000 in 2022, and about 1,900 in 2021. The demise of the Sinaloa Cartel. Flores says he doesn't think the Sinaloa Cartel or others made a strategic decision to enter the Fetty Wap business. It was reactive, he says. The demand was there, especially in the middle of the opioid crisis, and Cartel saw an opening. For them, it's always been about profit. Fetty Wap just made more money faster. But, Flores says, it's also been one of the worst long-term decisions they've made. Yes, it brought profits, but it also created a new generation of leaders who lack the discipline, structure, and respect of the older generation. Their obsession with violence and power is part of what's brought so much heat and instability. The cartels and their unions have always been violent. I get it. The kids is wilder, crazier, but they get to do that. They get to play with their toy soldiers. They get to play with their toy soldiers and send them out as cannon fodder while they roll up in a new Bugatti somewhere. And then when they're done playing with their toys and they've lost enough disposable soldiers, they go cut a deal. They call Jeffrey Lichtman and shit. They cut a deal. Anybody got an opinion or something to say on this article here? Jay, didn't say nothing there that he don't say here, He feels like it's a wrap for them. And technically it is. Sinaloa Cartel doesn't exist anymore. So I don't recall they ever got caught, if memory serves me correct. The Flores twins caught themselves in a dilemma and decided a way out with loads and a recording. That is you should be writing the metadata for this channel, okay? Because that was exquisitely said, my friend. And then people get mad. Oh, you're caping for the twins. Why? Because I'm telling the truth. They weren't caught. Yeah, they were caught between a rock, a hard place. The truth is the truth. And just what the news could say, whatever, and then a dummy could come and bring this to me and say, no, look what it says right here. And this is the Chicago Sun-Times. Well, that shit don't mean nothing to me no more. Can't nobody argue to me and bring me the Chicago Sun-Times and expect me to believe that shit. But what does that mean, the end of the Sinaloa Cartel, And the rise of what? What's next? The alliance